A story that kind of caught everybody by surprise a bit last week. It's not the kind of thing you imagine would happen here. It's like a U.S. heist of some kind or a big European heist. $20 million of gold and other valuables disappeared from Toronto Pearson Airport after a plane was offloaded. It's a week or so later. I've not heard a single thing, a single clue, a single lead from anyone in the story. However, maybe that's changed. Jeff Siskind is executive producer of the True North Heist podcast, which covers stories like these that have happened in Canada, and of course is all over this story. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So am I wrong? Have you heard anything, any kind of a lead, any kind of an explanation as to how or why this might have happened?
I have theories, but to be clear, I'm a podcast producer and not an investigator. So I'm like you. I'm just sitting on the sidelines, maybe with a slightly more glee, given sort of my interest in it, but I'm just watching it unfold as if it's a great Hollywood heist film.
So the only thing I saw was the day of, or I guess, or the next day, I saw Toronto police hold a press conference and offer absolutely no information whatsoever. So that was not the most informative press conference you could have held. So you're following this as an observer. What have you seen? What have you heard?
Well, so what I've seen is probably what you've heard. The interesting thing that came out just yesterday is that the company that was transferring the gold was Brinks. It was a private company. But other than that, these cases, unless there's sort of a mistake being made, they don't usually get solved. And, there are a couple, and certainly what we do on the podcast, there's a couple of famous cases that happened in Canada that got solved, but they got solved because there was just a problem in the plan. But for the most cases, these are kind of done by geniuses. Our interest in these stories are because of Hollywood films like Ocean's 11 or there's a whole countless other. But you have these George Clooney-like characters who are at the helm of this thing, who sit and they watch and they calculate and they find a flaw in the system and figure out a way to exploit it. And the plans are usually so tight, things go wrong, just like in the movies, but the plans usually work. And, when you come to something like gold, it may never be solved because the gold, more than likely, it's probably already been melted down and shipped somewhere else.
That's crazy.
So I'm just the end of the story.
Is this likely to be, not that we would know, maybe it's an unfair question, is this likely to be one person's stash or someone trying to move this money? Is it corporate? Do we have any idea?
We don't. As someone who enjoys stories, I can look at precedent stories, and it's probably not one person. And it's probably not one person for a variety of reasons, one of which, we see, Danny Ocean, Ocean's 11 putting together a gang. These things need multiple people to work. Yeah. So you need your mastermind. You need your person on the inside. It's a small thing, but you need a driver. You need a fence, somebody who can figure out how to turn this into cash. You need all of these things. So it's definitely not one person. And it's just also a logistical thing. Gold is really, really heavy. And so this isn't just someone, sticking a little gold in their pocket and walking off. This is $20 million worth of gold. So you're going to have a level of organization, whether it's sort of organized crime in the way we traditionally think of it, or, someone putting together a posse to pull off a massive heist. It's definitely not a lone criminal.
Jeff, you touched on the aspect that there has to be somebody on the inside. So what do we know? Do we know anything about, because we heard little bits and pieces about this being an inside job. What do we know about that front? So
I think we don't know. And this is, if I were the police or I were an investigator, this is the place people usually look because, in lieu of fingerprints or video evidence or anything else left of the crime, what you can be sure of is somebody knew that gold would be there and somebody knew that gold would be there that day and at that location. And the genius of all these things is that they're always, as I said before, they're looking for that gooey flaw in the system. And so here you have the gold lands. It's taken to a sort of off-site location, a warehouse, where there isn't the same level of security that an airport regularly would have. And there lies opportunity. While the gold's there for probably not a very long period of time, somebody knew that this is their moment. So, if I were police, that's what I would be looking into is who knew that gold would be in that location and that, not very secure location at that time. And it's not going to be a long list of people. Are they going to find it? Who knows? But that's where I'm sure investigators are starting their investigation.
So how do we compare, given that this is what you kind of do, look into these sort of heists, what does this compare to that most recently happened in Canada? Anything like it at all?
Well, probably my favorite, and I'm glad to be talking with the Montreal station, is, of course, the Great Maple Syrup Heist, which happened in 2012, which, the heist that just happened at the Toronto Airport, $20 million, previously, it broke the record because the maple syrup heist, as people may remember, was estimated somewhere a street value of about $18 million. So you have, a similar kind of setup where you had here where I don't know how much you know about the details of this, but there's a federation in Quebec, the Quebec Federation of Maple Syrup Producers, that holds all this maple syrup in a warehouse. This warehouse, similar to the warehouse where this gold was taken from, was not particularly well secured. I think in the case of this, the maple syrup warehouse was spectacularly unwell, secured. And so there was the flaw in the system where, through many, many people, I think there was 3 or 4 central people, they began moving barrels, 600-pound barrels of maple syrup from the warehouse. And ultimately there was a barrel roller involved who could sell the stuff on the black market. Yeah. And, unlike gold, maple syrup, actually similar to gold, also very, very hard to trace and could have just, gone by the wayside, except for the fact, very, very similar to this. The first place they looked was, who are we renting this land from? Who knows about this warehouse? And so it was the person who actually rented the land the warehouse was on, ended up being the key to unlocking the rest of the crime in that case.
I'm just wondering, in this case, in terms of the gold heist, has someone stepped forward to say, hey, where's my gold?
I don't know. And what's even kookier about this is we never know because, like these things are, they're crimes. There are people who are losing. In terms of raw gold, there's not a lot of emotional attachment to raw gold. And my understanding is that Brinks has stepped up and there's probably an insurance claim to be made. So, I don't know, I don't know. There was gold in other things is the way the police are talking about it. I don't know what the other things were.
Probably maple syrup.
Gold, people will not be out of pocket for that. There will be, they can buy more bars of gold.
Okay.
So, obviously $20 million gold heists are not happening every day, but you've got a podcast about heists. So is this happening on a smaller level on a fairly regular basis?
Well, it is, Canada has this weird history of sort of similar kinds of gold heists. There was one story we told, a guy named Ken Leishman, who in the 60s, he was known as the Gentleman Bandit. He was a dapper man with a trim mustache. He was also known as the Flying Bandit. And part of how he got that nickname is he used to fly planes, but he also used to spend a lot of time at airports, including the Winnipeg airport, where he noticed that regularly, about once a month, a shipment would come from Red Lake, which is in northern Ontario, where they mine the gold, to the Winnipeg airport, where this shipment would stand on the tarmac for about an hour or two, and then get shipped into an Air Canada plane and sent to the mint. So he sort of thought, there's maybe something I can do with that information. And so he got together a gang. He bought some coveralls. He stenciled the Air Canada logo on the coveralls. He stole some Air Canada waybills. He stole an Air Canada truck. And when that gold, and he got a inside man that was in Red Lake saying, okay, big shipment's coming. There he was on the tarmac when the shipment came in. He drove out to meet the plane. He's like, hey, you know what? There's been a change of plan. Here's the waybill. I'm going to take that gold and we're going to ship it on the new flight. He took that gold and he drove it right to his own car, where he put it in the trunk and drove it away.
So simple,
That's
hey?
great.
Like so seemingly simple. So then I just wonder, you have this podcast. I can't wait to check it out. I'm wondering if you're taking notes, Jeff. Like, why are you so interested?
I'm so interested as a fan. I don't have it in me. Like I don't think that way. There's a certain genius to this, and I also really don't want to go to jail.
There you go.
Another good reason.
I appreciate them as stories. The stories that we tell on our podcast, which also just worth be known is available on Audible. The stories that we tell the stories of people that got caught because then we know the details of the stories. And, often they spend 10, 20 years in prison. That's not my bag.
Fair enough.
The podcast is True North Heists, as in Heists. You can check that out. And I'm sure once there's any kind of progress in this one, you'll have something up on that. Hey, Jeff, how likely is it that George Clooney is involved? No, I take that back. I'm sorry.
I can't say either way.
I know, you can't. Jeff, thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it.
Great. Thanks so much.
Jeff Siskind, True North Heist podcast. And the basic answer to everything we asked was, we don't know.
I get the intrigue, though. It's out of a movie.
Pretty crazy.